Alright, hello Guild Wars gamers, Muckluck here, and I have got some speculation content today. Not usually my forte, but I was feeling very inspired. So, I want to recap really quick. For those who are not caught up on the news, me and many other partners were sent this teaser image that says, raise your banners, and that's an American date, that's this Friday, okay? Now, it was pointed out to me by Loranity and Teapot and many other creators that are, more up to date on the lore than I am, because I have the memory of a goldfish, that the structure in the background of this image resembles a Ra in ore before it got all mucked up. For those who don't know Guild Wars lore, the continent or island, whatever, of ore, that's ORR, got sunk beneath the waves by a guy doing a big spell, and later Zaitan rose it up full of zombies. So it's all covered in seaweed and it's gross and yucky now. However, if we've got this image where ore is looking shiny and clean, that means this is in the past. And again, this is speculation. This is a lot of ifs, but stick with me here. So if this is in the past, what does that mean? That means that the thing on Friday could be a Guild Wars 2 expansion where we time travel. You know, Vlox is about to do something crazy with magic, but we don't know what. But the thing is, the next thing of the Vlox story is months away, so I kind of doubt that they would announce that at the next thing. Also, Guild Wars 1 also posted this on their social media, on their Twitter. And I don't think Guild Wars 1 would be announcing this stuff if it's a Guild Wars 2 expansion. So Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2 are both plugging this like crazy on socials. So the next idea is Guild Wars 3. Which a lot of people have been guessing that they are working on. And if we're looking at ore in the past, suddenly the idea has come to mind that Guild Wars 3 could be a prequel. It could be before Guild Wars 1 and 2. So I thought it would be fun to put together a list of what races and classes could we possibly play in a prequel Guild Wars 3. Now, I really want to stress, this is a what if, all right? This is if Guild Wars 3 is coming out, and if it's a prequel, what races and classes work for that timeline, okay? So, really want to stress that at the beginning, because there's people that are going to clip this out of context and crap like that. You know how the internet can be, but I know all of you smart individuals will, understand what I'm doing here. So, with all that said, let's get some timelines here. The way dates work in the Guild Wars universe is AE or Ascension era. There is kind of like our BC that counts down to 0 and then AD after that. Here it's BE and AE. So, there's also the Canthan calendar, but we're just completely ignoring that right now. So what you need to know is Guild Wars Prophecies. The pre-searing happens in the year 1070. If you boot up Guild Wars 1, and you make a new character, you're in the year 1070. The sinking of ore happened in 1071. Post-searing is 1072. So that means if you play Guild Wars 1, and then you see the searing cinematic, and it skips ahead 2 years, that's suddenly after the sinking of ore, okay? Guild Wars 2 starts in 1325, all right? So 250 years later, all right? So let's talk about what races could we possibly be playing in a Guild Wars 3 prequel. So what do we know? We know, again, we know. We're basing our guesses here on the fact that we saw ore. And if that is ore, nice and shiny, it's pre-1071. Okay? It's before 1071. So, what races are available before? Can you make the text bigger? I absolutely can. Hang on. What races are available before 1071? So let's talk about races for a second. Races in some games have racial bonuses. So like again, pulling from my World of Warcraft experience, the undead had a move called Will of the Forsaken. They could break out of sleep or charm or fear effects with a 3-minute cooldown. The orcs had a 5% damage buff to any pets they had. So if they was an orc warlock, because the orcs had a lot of lore with like demonology, then their pets did 5% more damage. Now pets were a very small part of their damage, so it wasn't a big thing, but it was a small thing. I personally like racial bonuses, and if the game has racial bonuses and there's different races, that's going to influence what I play. But if it is a game where there's not really racial bonuses and we just pick whatever we think looks pretty, then that's kind of like how Guild Wars 2 is set up. And of course, Guild Wars 1 is purely you only play humans. That's it. Guild Wars 1, you only play humans, and Guild Wars 2, we've got 5 options. Okay, so races. We got a long list here. Humans, they're definitely an option. They were, humans made ore, and they're on the teaser poster. Humans are definitely in. Char. Pre-1070, they were mostly fighting each other. Civil wars, tribes fighting each other, stuff like that. However, by the year 1070, they united because they all hated humans that much. And 1070 was when they did the searing and they blew up the human city. Okay? So Char do exist pre-1070. However, they're mostly killing each other. So maybe, like, it is possible the writers could add some Char as a playable race. All right, Norns. In 1078, the Sons of Svanir were formed. That happened in the Guild Wars 1 Eye of the North expansion. In 1165, Jormag woke up, which forced all the Norns south from the northern mountains. But they are seen in Guild Wars 1 Eye of the North. So, let's pretend, using our imagination, that Guild Wars 3 takes place around Ur. Okay, that's here. Now, the Norns are currently here, but that's after Jormag chased them down from the far north. Okay? They were running for their lives from this dragon that they couldn't beat. And there's no waypoints pre-1070. All right? So, is it, like, Norns exist in that time period, but I think it's unlikely we'd run into any. If the story takes place down here, I think it's very unlikely we'll run into any Norns. So, that one is possible, but unlikely. Sylvari. They're out. Salads, you're good, you're done. The first Sylvari was born in 1302. This one is just no. It's not gonna happen. Asura. The Asura exist, but they were forced out of the underground from Primordus in 1078 AE. So they exist, similar to Norns. It's possible, but unlikely, because they're mostly underground. They're down there, they're fighting the dredge, they're hating on Skrit, there's occasional destroyers, but they're underground, and most of the people on the surface have never seen one. Alright, so possible. We do meet some Asura in the Eye of the North Guild Wars 1 expansion, which is a couple years after what we're talking about, but again, it's simply unlikely. Coden, the Bears. In 1165, Jormag forced many Coden south as far as Snowden Drifts. So, Coden are in the same boat as the Norns, okay? Coden were mostly up here. Jormag woke up, they were like, oh my god, dragon! And they were forced to run, and some of them got as far south as Snowden Drifts, okay? Before that, they were mostly up here. And some of them ended up, over here in Janthier and stuff like that. Again, possible, unlikely, unless there's like another tribe that we don't know about, but it doesn't seem likely, but it's possible. They do exist. Tengu. I was not able to find a ton of information on this, except that from 880 to 1071, the Tengu were at war. So during this time period that we're talking about, the Tengu are mostly at war. So it's possible they were seen in Guild Wars 1 in the grassy areas. We met a few of them there, and there's a bunch of them over in Cantha, which is like 10,000 miles away. So Tengu is possible. They are a little occupied killing each other, but it's possible. Tengu are possible. Skrit. Similar to the other underground races, Primordus woke up in 1120, which forced them to the surface. I just realized the Skrit wiki page said 1120, the Asura wiki page said 1078. So I don't know, but maybe just they were in a different part of the underground and it took Primordus longer to reach them. I do not know. But the Skrit were also chased out of the underground, similar to things like Dredge and Asura, when Primordus woke up and everything started getting lava-y and demonic down there. So the Skrit were never seen in Guild Wars 1, and they're mostly underground at that time period. So they are alive. It's possible. Unlikely, though. Dwarves. Dwarves had a civil war that ended in 1072. There were mainly two dwarven factions. In 1078, they were faced with impending death from destroyers, just waves of them. And they used a power to turn their race to stone to better fight these things. And most of the dwarves were turned to stone at that time. There are a couple of stone dwarves that we run into, or remnants of them, in Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 1, you see them turn to stone, like you meet them while they're flesh and blood, and you see them when they turn to stone. And most of the stone dwarves die fighting the destroyers to hold them off. So during the time period that we're discussing, dwarves are alive and they are flesh and blood. So, it's possible. It's possible. I don't know where they're located. I know that in Guild Wars 1, for example, just outside of Lion's Arch, there is an entrance to the underground and you run into some dwarves. So I don't know if that you can literally say that they are underground, like right here. I'm not sure if it's that cut and dry, because that same dungeon entrance is also right outside of multiple other cities, or if that was just for the sake of gameplay. But they are alive in flesh and blood at the time period we're talking about. Largos. The blue thighs. In Guild Wars lore, the exact year the Largos race originated is unknown in-game. They are considered a recently emergent species and closely guard their history. That's what it says on the wiki page. I don't know. I feel like, they're so secretive, it's unlikely that we are going to get to play them. I feel like it is highly unlikely. Let's see. What's up, Bangor? I'll check that out afterward. I'll check that out after. All right. So some of these I wrote down just because chat was bugging me too, and I don't think it's likely at all. Quaggins are nudists. For that reason alone, I don't think we'll get to play Quaggins because they run around butt naked all the time. But in Guild Wars 2, while the Quaggins have lived in the unending ocean since a prehistoric dragon rise approximately 10,000 years ago, their recorded society only dates back to 1275 AE. So, the Quaggins are alive. They're as old as dinosaurs. But I don't think we're going to get to play them, because they run around butt naked all the time. Jotun. In the Guild Wars lore, Jotun race dates back to 10,000 BE. So it's like kind of like BC, 10,000 years before 0, and then it counts up after that. During this era, also known as the Age of Giants, they were a dominant, highly advanced magical civilization that predates the arrival of the 6 human gods and the creation of bloodstones. By the events of the games, which began in 1070, the Jotun were reduced to scattered, mostly primitive tribes inhabiting the Shiverpeak Mountains. So, around the time period that we're talking about, where ore is all shiny, they are, like, just dumb. They are primitive tribes. So I don't think we'd get to play one, but I mean, you do have some exceptions. Like, there is a certain Jotun that we meet that is a wizard in Secrets of the Obscure. So there's exceptions, but I don't know if we'd get to play them or not. But they are alive during this time period. Hylek, the frog people. Exact year or era of their creation is unknown because their history is passed down orally among scattered tribes. No written records exist to pinpoint their origin, but they're classified as one of the ancient indigenous species of Tyria. So, Hylek are alive. I don't know if we saw any in Guild Wars 1. We definitely meet them in Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 1, I don't know if we meet them, but they are alive and they're on the map. Choya. We're not playing Choya. You guys made me write this down. In Guild Wars lore, the exact in-game year Choya's race or origin is undocumented, but they're historically tied to the Crystal Desert and Alona, meaning they have naturally existed as an indigenous species in those regions, alongside elder dragons for centuries. So, Choya are alive, and they are on the map. I don't know you. Let's see. Centaurs. We're not getting centaurs. There's no way... Imagine a centaur doing a jumping puzzle. It would look stupid as hell. There's no way we're getting centaurs. However, they are recorded as an ancient race existing long before the arrival of humanity and the six gods. So, centaurs are alive. They are on the map. We could run into centaurs. Okay. So, that is races. That's what I have been able to find as far as which ones exist in that time period and which ones are likely. Because, like, for example, like I said, you got some that are underground. You got some that are, you know, like, really far away. So it's just a matter of, like, what do we end up with? Okay. Let's talk classes. What classes could we expect to play? So, I have written down all the classes that were in Guild Wars 1 and 2. I did not write down elite specs because that would be an additional 27 things or something. But I got all the base classes. So, Warrior. Warrior is boring. Every game has them. They will certainly be there. It might be called Fighter. Alright? It's literally like guy with physical violence. That's in every game. There absolutely is going to be Warrior. Mesmer. Humans have had Mesmers for a long time. Norns gave humans the idea of adding greatswords to their kit, and Shar gave humans the idea of adding pistols to their kit. So, Mesmers are on the map. And honestly, I think they should be there. If there is a Guild Wars 3, they need to have Mesmers. Like, every fantasy MMO has a warrior. Every fantasy MMO has a guy with a bow and arrow. Every fantasy MMO has a guy that shoots fireballs out of his hands. Mesmer is Guild Wars. It would be, in my opinion, stupid of them to not have a Guild Wars game have Mesmer. Like, that's theirs. So they should have that. Alright, Necromancers. In Guild Wars lore, the exact founding year of Necromancers is lost to antiquity, but it does date back to well before the human exodus, which was in 1 BE. So yes, Necromancers were already on the map for 1,000 years prior to the sinking of ore. Necros are an option. Ranger profession existed well before the start of recorded history in Tyria, dating back to at least 500 years AE to the events of Guild Wars factions, because there's early lore mentions of renowned rangers such as Zojun operating in Cantha during this ancient era to protect shriveling forests. Now, Ranger could, in Guild Wars 2 is guy with bow and arrow, can summon spirits, has a pet companion, has minor nature magic, like calling on vines to tie up his foes, things like that. So they could change that. Like, a ranger could easily be just an archer, right? With or without a pet, with or without nature magic. So I'm sure a ranger in some way would be in the game. It might be different than what we know, though. Monk. No dates, but the wiki says monks are one of the oldest known professions in Tyria. So monk is probably in. For those that never played Guild Wars 1, monk was in Guild Wars 1, Guardian was in Guild Wars 2, which segues us to Guardian, which was described as a newer profession in Tyria, a mixture of Paragon and Monk. And the first time we ever see a Guardian in Guild Wars lore, I believe, was in the Sea of Sorrows book, which takes place when the first Lion's Arch was destroyed. So Guardian is relatively new. So I think Guardian's out. Guardian mains, get out. Salad mains, get out. Guardian salads, you're out twice. All right, they're done. So they just do not exist in that time period. Excelsior. Dervish dates back to the Shattered Dynasty, which was 583 AE. I don't know what the Shattered Dynasty is. I stopped reading there, but 583 AE is 500 years before what we're talking about. So Dervish is existing, but they're way over here in the desert. So we've got a distance thing, all right? If the story is hereish and Dervish is down here, would they realistically be involved in any way? So I'm going to say Dervish is possible, but unlikely. It's kind of the same as the Norns. They're so far away. All right, Paragon. The profession's earliest known origins date back to the time of Turai Osa, which was centuries before 1070 AE. Same issue as the Dervish. The Paragon exists, but they are mostly over here. And the story we're looking at is possibly over here. So, Paragon and Dervish both exist, but they're both really far away in the desert, and I don't know that they could realistically be there. Now, again, for the 100th time, writers be writers. They could just have it be there. Like, oh yeah, this wandering band of paragons happened to be there. Yeah, they could do that. It's whatever they want, but we're just talking likelihood. That's it, we're talking likelihood. Ritualist. I was actually very surprised reading about this one. In Guild Wars lore, the Ritualist profession doesn't have an exact founding year, as it is considered one of the oldest professions in Tyria. Now, we all know what the oldest profession is. This is one of the oldest. The practice predates both the founding of the Canthan Empire and the granting of magic by the Six Gods. Now, I was really surprised by that. It predates when the gods gave humans magic? Humans were already enslaving spirits before the gods gave them magic. That's a neat trick. But anyway, so Ritualist exists. However, again, the problem we've got is distance. Here's our possible story. Here's Ritualist. They're down here. So they are super mucking far away. I do not know if they could realistically be in our story if it takes place here. So that's what I'm saying for that. Ritualist is possible, but the most unlikely of anything so far because of the how far away it is and no waypoints. Assassins. Now this is literally just guy that kills someone else for money. I don't think this is going to be difficult to find, but the assassin history says 872 AE, the profession gained widespread prominence during the reign of Emperor Angxian. Same as the Ritualists, they are way down in Cantha, so they do exist in that time period, it has been confirmed, but they are really, really mucking far away. Alright. Elementalist. Easy. Humans have already had magic for 1,000 years at this point in the story. Elementalist is absolutely on the map. Engineer. In Guild Wars lore, the engineer profession was developed by the Char Iron Legion during the 250-year gap between Guild Wars 1 and 2. The profession does not even date back to Guild Wars 1. Engineers, you follow Guardians out the door. There's no way. Unless there's like a more crude version of engineer or something. They throw rocks. So engineer, lore-wise, would not be on the map for during this. Unless retcon? Of course, yes. A retcon opens the door to anything, obviously. But engineer, based on the lore we currently is not on the map during this. Oh, new build available. We'll get that for a second. All right, Revenant, it's out. Ritlock was the first Revenant, and he brought Revenancy to the game in 1328. He was trapped in the mist for a while, he came back, and he brought Revenancy with him, and then he taught other people to be Revenants. Revenant is out. Thief. In this is literally just a guy who's willing to rob another guy. In Guild Wars lore, the thief profession dates back to the establishment of Tyrian civilization. So thief is absolutely on the map. It's possible. But really, this one's always been kind of odd to me, because depending on the game you play, it's thief, or it's rogue, or it's spy, or it's scoundrel, or it's assassin, or it's smuggler. It's all the same thing. It's guy willing to rob 7-Eleven. Maybe he's got a knife, okay? So yes, thief is going to be there, but it might be called something else. It might be called something different, but it's absolutely, like, in the possibility. Yes, it's the third oldest profession, right behind ritualist and that other thing. And the last thing I wrote down is horses. I think it would be hilarious if we play a prequel and there are horses and there is no explanation. And that concludes my TED Talk. So, that's it. That is every class and race that I could think of, and chat, helped me make this list, that could be in a Guild Wars 3 prequel that takes place in that time. So I just thought this would be really fun to go through. We've completely, like, certain things like Sylvari, Guardian Engineer, Revenant, those are out. Those, like, unless they do some serious retcon, those are not available during that time period. So others, are they going to do the Holy Trinity? I'm sure we'll have healers, but will we have tanks? I don't know. Would we have, if we have healers, is Monk back on the menu? Ritualist is, but it's like at the other end of the planet. So, it's really far away. So just certain things seem really unlikely. Typically with races, in my experience with fantasy games, you would have, like, Guild Wars 2 has 5 races. There's usually, like, some medium-sized races, there's a little dude, and then there's something, like, big and monstrous. In Guild Wars 2, Norns are big, Chars are also big, they're the monster race, Asuras are the little dudes. In this, I feel like Dwarves could be the little dudes. Coden or Norn could be the big ones, but again, they're equally far away. Norn and Coden are both, like, at the North Pole at this point in time. So, and I don't really know what other race could be, like, the big guy. Jotun seems unlikely because they're so primitive, but they could be the big guy. It's possible. It's possible. Quaggins, yeah, Quaggins are little dudes, but Quaggins are just, again, they're nudists. The art department is not going to have Quaggins be playable because they just run around naked all the time. But yeah, anyway, that's my thoughts on this and all the information I gathered on this topic. I thought this was really fun to speculate, and once again, this was a exercise in what ifs. What if it's Guild Wars 3? What if it's a prequel? And what if it's around the time of Ore when it was nice and shiny? Following all those what ifs, these were my findings. Also horses. All right, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Did I miss any major races or classes? And do you think I was off the mark? Or is there anything you're hoping for? What do you got? Put them down there. I'll fight you there.